You mentioned you were stood as a Conservative at the last election and was elected as that. Um, you, since then, have become an independent. What was the reasoning behind leaving the
Yeah,
Conservative
so
Party?
so this is a variety of reasons, and this is probably not publicly known, but I'm happy to make it public. It's not a secret in any way. So a variety of reasons, really. I was elected as a Conservative in Penfrisk in May 2017, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it was probably because I'm quite well known in Penfrisk area. You know, my family is a well-known family in the area, not necessarily because I was a Conservative. Um, and in 2017, you'll be aware that there was a lot of well, political issue around Brexit, and the Prime Minister David Cameron at the time um, essentially had to leave office, and Theresa May took over, and she wanted to seek a new mandate. And I suppose as a result of me standing as the 2011 Assembly candidate against the then First Minister Carwyn Jones, I'd gained a profile within the Conservative Association. I probably was the preferred candidate from the members to take on that election against Madeleine Moon, who was the sitting MP at the time. And essentially, I suppose from the establishment, I'm seen as establishment within any political party. This is, you know this if you've become a member of a political party. There's what the establishment think and what the normal members think. Yeah. So basically, my gut feeling is that they thought that I was a member of the awkward squad, essentially. So I don't tend to be one that follows a whip easily. I probably challenge things where I feel that is wrong. I would have my own mind in Parliament. So at that very sensitive period of time surrounding Brexit, I probably wouldn't necessarily support the party line. So they didn't want someone in a potentially winnable position at that time. As we know, Gent is a key seat for the key battleground seat for the Labour Party and the Conservatives, as we've known from recent history. So therefore, I suppose it was manufactured. A situation was manufactured where I was told, or the official reason was that they wanted more women in Parliament. So as a result, I was overlooked based on gender, essentially. And my principles are that regardless of gender or sexuality or any other defining feature, you should be elected based on merit and merit alone. So, I could have been selected, there could have been a rule put in place, a manufactured rule, where I could have been selected as a gay man, for example. That wasn't the case. It was, you're dismissed because you're male. So not only was the decision to put that in place a matter of principle for me, because don't forget, I was quite a senior member of the Bridgend Conservative team at that point. I was chair of the Education Scrutiny Committee in Bridgend. And essentially, it was a personal slap in the face as well for me. I mustn't dismiss that. So it was based on principles of merit and a personal slap in the face for me, that after well over a decade of building the Conservative Association within the Bridgend County Borough, they decided to do that to someone who was very loyal. Interestingly, when the current MP for Bridgend sought office, the preference for female candidates was dropped. So, that tells you enough, I suppose. So that's the kind of background that led to my becoming an independent. But I suppose, beyond that, it would have happened anyway, I would have said. And I suppose in retrospect, I can say that, but it would have happened anyway. I wouldn't have been a supporter of Brexit. I'm not a particular supporter of Boris Johnson's way of governing. So, even if I were to have become a member of Parliament, or Conservative Member of Parliament for Bridgend, at some point, I think the likelihood that loyal to the Conservatives would have slipped in the end.
So you stood for Parliament before against Madeline Moon.
I stood against Calvin Jones, First Minister.
Oh, Calvin Jones, sorry.
Yeah, in 2011, and I stood against Chris Elmore, who's the Member of Parliament in Altamore, when he became MP, when Hugh Ranker-Davies moved from Parliament to the Assembly. Yeah.
So what are your ambitions for the future? Are you going to stay a county councillor, or look to stand for Parliament, or even the Senate the next time round?
Well, that's the difficult thing about being an independent, I suppose. You know, as I've just mentioned, I used to be very ambitious about seeking election to higher office. However, I think until the election system changes demonstrably to become more proportional, you know, such as, I don't know, single transferable vote or something like that, there's very little opportunity for any independents to get elected unless it's based on a single issue campaign. So some independents have got elected before, haven't they, as MPs, but it's always like saving a hospital or saving a school or on a single issue basis. They don't really gain any ground, like we've seen in the recent Senate elections, even though, for example, Steve Bletzer did very well in Bridgend. He gained a significant number of votes. He was still way off the number of votes which were required. If we had a more proportional system, then potentially Steve or any other candidate for that matter would have a chance of actually gaining public office. And also, you know, I really do think that the way in which political parties have their regional lists is farcical. Essentially, they elevate candidates who they like, basically, and not based on merit again. So the electorate have very little say in who their regional members of the Senate are. So a lot of work needs to be done, I think, in the way in which our electoral system allows independent candidates to represent the communities at a higher level.
Yeah. Excuse me a second. I'm losing my light badly. I'm going to turn my light on. It's just starting to really pour down where I am.
Okay, no problem.
There we go. I know not much to look at, but I like to see what I'm doing. Yeah, so I think another problem for an independent standing is that they have to fund everything themselves, from that getting people to help them, whereas the party candidate has a huge advantage. They don't have to find the money to do their own leaflets. Party will pay for that. Party will also send out flyers that mention them in the local area, so it doesn't come under party funding. It doesn't come under election funding. And I think until that changes as well, until it makes an even ground, it's going to be hard for an independent on any issue, even saving a hospital, saving your local park, or whatever it is. Very hard, not just for Parliament, but for the Senate as well. Even though I believe we've had an independent Senate at the moment, I'm not really sure. But there we go. Anyway, we've got a question.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think you're absolutely right. You know, it's about financial resources which political parties provide. It's human resources on the doorsteps. It's an association with a group and a political platform which people can associate with. So it's going to be incredibly difficult for independent candidates to cut through that at a national level. At county level, it's much easier because you have a much smaller area to deal with, and the public tend to know the people around them. You know, they if you're doing your job properly, I suppose, then most people know who you are in your area because you've done something within the community. Whereas I suppose on a much larger scale, then it's more difficult to cut through as an independent, an unknown independent in those areas. So I think you're absolutely right. The electoral system needs to change on a not only on the in terms of the way in which people vote, as I said, not first past the post, but perhaps a single transferable vote system, but the way in which politics is funded and resourced.
Yeah.